You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
This is not my home. It's an operating table. And I'm the surgeon. Why aren't you laughing?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Welcome to the Batman Book Club, a podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. I am your host, Ryan Lauer. The Batman Book Club is a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. Just go to batmanonfilm.com, click on podcasts. You'll find the Batman Podcast Network that's full of a whole list of other Bat-related shows that also love to dive into other nerdy topics we all love to frolic about in our free time. The Batman Book Club is also a proud member of Patreon. If you like what you hear with the show and you want to help support the show, help keep the generators running in the Wayne Manor study, you can do that. Patreon.com/thebatmanbc. Now, thank you for listening to episode number 93, Batman Spiderman crossovers. Now, joining me is a familiar voice. You've heard him a lot in the podcasting world. He is 1/3 of the Vigilante 1939 podcast. He's also 1/3 of the Italians for Spider-Man, and he is a Kristen Stewart mega fan. It is Mr. Nikko Caruso. Nikko, welcome back to the show, my friend.
I'm honored to be here talking about these stories. Yeah. I'm honored to return, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. And yes, you're right. I have been, I'm going to use the word anointed. I have been anointed into the Kristen Stewart fandom since around November of this year.
You've been crowned. You know,
I have.
You're part of Kristen Stewart royalty now. So congratulations.
Her fans love me. They love us. They've been actually tuning into the Vigilante all of a sudden. We've gotten some Kristen Stewart accounts following us. They've been very supportive on TikTok. So you know what? It feels good. They're a lot more kind to me than the Lady Gaga fans were. They do not like me. The Kristen Stewart fans do like me. So I'm going to roll with the horses, as
there
they
you
say.
Go. Yeah, good. Bring in the supporters, and I don't know to what degree, but I felt a similar type thing when the Long Halloween movies came out, because I was just talking about that movie all the time. I got there's a ton of Jensen Ackles fan accounts on Twitter. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
they started following the show. So
that awesome?
I was like, hey, I love Jensen Ackles. Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Welcome aboard. Come on in.
God bless that Stan. Twitter can be really powerful, dude. It could be really powerful.
We're just here to have fun and talk Batman, and Jensen's a good Batman. So, hey, thanks.
Absolutely. It's awesome.
Before we get to, oh my gosh, it's almost been like exactly a year since you've been on this show.
I think so. Wild. I think it's been close. Yeah.
You and Daddy Batman, who is unable to join us tonight. We're with you, sir. I hope we make you proud. Yes.
Absolutely, Pops.
You were on a year ago to do, I believe it was Detective Comics, and I did not look this up. 725, 726?
Yes, sir. Man, you got it. That's awesome. Look at this. That's how you know he's a great host and the best Batman librarian of all time.
I'm trying to keep track. Don't ask me which episode number, because that I do forget.
No, I don't even remember the episode number.
It's been too long since you guys have been back. But let me ask, because I asked your guys' favorite Batman story then, before we dive into the crossover stuff now. Since we already heard that, I just want to ask you quick, what's some Batman stuff you've been reading lately? As we ramp up to the Batman.
Oh, great question. So I really like The Imposter. I really like Jeff Lemire's Robin and Batman.
Yeah.
I read One Dark Knight, the first part.
Yeah.
And then I am still catching up on the main title and the detective stuff. I'm caught up on the main Batman title. I'm still working my way back through Detective Comics. Those kind of piled up because I read Amazing Spider-Man as well.
Sure.
That's 3 times a month. And we talk about that with Pete a lot on the Italian Spidey show. And then I read a lot of other stuff too. But so it's mainly those it's mainly the limited series for Batman I've been reading, which those were 2 really good ones at the same time. Robin and Batman and The Imposter. And The Imposter actually, is from Tomlin, who co-wrote the Batman film coming out. So it was cool to see a taste of what this Gotham City we're going to see in just under a month.
Yeah. And that Detective Comics, that piled up fast because it's a weekly 12-part series, which Pete is a typing machine, getting those reviews out to Batman on
God
Film.
bless
so
him.
yeah, we're talking about those. We'll be talking about we talked about the first 4 parts in January, and then the next episode will be Pete and I'll break down the next 4. But the Batman title itself, Josh Williamson, I've loved that.
It started off strong.
I loved that. We'll see if it sticks the landing. The next issue is to end that arc before it goes into an event, and I've really liked it. I think pretty positive word of mouth from others too.
Oh yeah, I've seen more positive than negative for it, and Williamson is one of the strongest writers for DC right now, in my opinion. Especially the last few years too. So when he was announced to take over, I wasn't worried, and so far he's delivered pretty well. And let's see how this event's going to be, because sometimes the events can be hit or miss when you have all these other stories crossing over. So
it didn't get me excited, but that's okay too, because maybe that means I'll read it and I'll get blown away. I don't know.
Exactly.
Optimistic over here, but I know what I did like, these Batman Spider-Man crossover issues. So let's talk a little Batman and Spider-Man. So Nico, before we get into both of these issues, we're going to talk about them one at a time. What, and this usually comes later on, but I'm going to ask now, like, what made you decide these were what you wanted to talk about?
So it's funny. So when me and my dad, who is supposed to be on with us, unfortunately he can't, but he's with us in spirit, and we're going to make him proud here. These are stories that we love and that I love, because these are 2 of my favorite characters ever, with Spider-Man being my number 1 favorite character ever, with Batman being a super close number 2. I have like the Flash maybe in between them, or tied with Batman, but these are my 2 favorite characters ever. And my dad and I like to go like find like the hidden gems, like what we did a year ago with you, which, doesn't always, I feel like people are always looking for like the big stories, but we like to show people the little hidden gems. And when you did reach out to us, when we talked about doing this again, we were in the middle of the Spider-Man No Way Home hoopla, which made me dig these out, and we kind of took a shot in the dark and thought, hey, it might be cool, because Spider-Man's going to be riding hot at least until March, right, when the Batman comes out. So why not pick these 2 stories where these 2 legends, where these 2 titans come together? And so that was really the mindset behind it. Is I've asked a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people I know who read comics don't know these exist. And I don't know why they're not bigger than they are, because, spoiler alert, I really like them both, and actually think they're 2 really strong stories with these 2 characters and how they work together. So we wanted to not only talk about them, but maybe show members of your audience who don't know these exist to go out and read them.
That's a good plan. And I mean, we're talking about these on the heels of the announcement that the JLA Avengers crossover story is going to be reprinted, with proceeds going to the Hero Initiative, I believe.
Yes.
George Perez's foundation. It's all in honor of him. That's going to be happening in March, and I mean, maybe that will pave the way for some of these other stories, but I know that had a direct link because it was illustrated by Perez. And so, yeah, and these books, I don't know, because actually last January, Paul Herman was on and we did the Punisher Batman crossover books. And I know we talked about that quite a bit, and I hadn't realized that there were so many crossover stories.
So many.
And that Batman has quite a few too. And I want to read all of them, and I want all of them. And so I just kind of feel now the announcement of the JLA Avengers one being reprinted is really surprising, because considering where Marvel and DC is now compared to the 90s and 2003 when the JLA Avengers story was done, it's like, the IPs are so valuable now that surprising of the recent announcement. And I hope these other ones will get reprinted and stuff. But we're going to talk first, Spider-Man and Batman. Quote unquote disordered minds.
Yes.
Written by J.M. and I meant to look this up. DeMatteis or DeMatteis?
I go back and forth with it too, which is ironic because he wrote my favorite Spidey story ever in Kraven's Last Hunt, and I still don't know how to say his name, but you're fine. I just say JMD. I say JMD.
JMD. I love it. Okay, written by JMD, illustrated by Mark Bagley. It was released physically in 1995. It was collected in a trade of the Marvel DC Collection Volume 3. That is all of it. It's hard to find. It is. You're going to pay a nice penny to read these. I think I know the answer to this, but Nikko, which version did you read for this episode?
I have two. I have the trade. I have the trade that my dad actually got in 1995.
The physical issue, like the
yes, sir.
The special. Okay.
Oh yeah. Sorry, the removed from the trade. Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Absolutely, and it's awesome. Cool. It has like I don't know what to call it. The covers like the title and the two characters are kind of like elevated off the page. It's not 3D, right? Or is that what
you can
called?
Feel like if you run your hand across, you can feel them pop out a little bit.
Yeah, cool. Feeling them pop out a little bit, which is cool and was very appealing to me as a youngin when I read this for the first time.
As a youngin, very cool. Now, do you remember when you first read? I'm reading this. It's on my iPad. That's all I want to say. So when did you first read Spider-Man and Batman? So
actually, yeah. So it's cool. So I remember because I read this one before the second one. We got that one later, but this one I remember reading. And I actually do remember because my mind was blown. I was so young. It's when I first started getting into comics, like officially. So I fell in love with Spider-Man with the first Sam Raimi film in 2002, followed by the 90s animated series. And then I really fell in love with Batman right around Batman Begins. And I went back with my dad and watched the animated series. And then like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited was happening at the time. So when I started reading comics, I was reading Spider-Man stuff first, obviously. And then when the Batman stuff came into play, my dad goes, I have an issue where they're both together. And then he showed it to me. And then like, I was blown away and I'm like, oh, it's cool because my understanding was they're not supposed to cross over. Right. And as a child, I would have action figures and play with the two of them together. And now I could read the two of them together. So I was probably like, it's probably like 2005, 6. I was probably like 11 or 12. And then I read it, like not really knowing what was going on at that age. And then I would read these over time and now I get them way more. But I do remember when he showed it to me because it blew my mind. Like I said, it was cool to like feel the cover and feel it like coming off and everything like that. So yeah.
Very cool. I actually just read this for the first time.
Oh, I love that. Okay, cool.
For this episode because I was given a bunch of digital versions of comics. So before they really started collecting the trades, like the Batman Chronicles, before those even came out, it was hard to get a hold of a sequential order of comics. So I was getting some of those and that this was thrown in there, I think, but I never read it. And then I think I just deleted them because I didn't like having that kind of stuff. And and then I realized that you can't find these. And I was fortunate somehow, which it's not so uncommon to come across the Batman Punisher issues, but it shouldn't surprise me either that I can't have that kind of luck with these Batman Spider-Man crossovers. So I just read these the other day, and in talking about this one, I like this one. I liked it. I liked them both. I thought that they were fun. I think and it's kind of, it's funny and ironic because this first one, I thought the art felt pretty 90s and it felt Graham Nolan. Yeah. It's actually funny considering the second one that we'll talk about. Yeah. By Graham Nolan. But this first one, I had no idea. I saw Mark Bagley, who I can't think of other stuff that he's drawn, but the name's familiar.
I mainly know him just because of Spidey.
He did Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
Spider-Man a lot. Okay.
He did all of Ultimate, and he's done them a lot. He's in my top 3 favorite Spidey artists ever.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So the story, the subtitle is, Disordered Minds. And I think that is the foundation of this whole 50 pages. It's all mind stuff. You have, we're introduced to each character. So this one also, I should say, it says Stan Lee Presents. So this one, Spider-Man and Batman, is a Marvel published book. And it starts off, and it would only make sense too, that we start off with Spider-Man first, but we get him having a nightmare of Uncle Ben being murdered. And then we get, there's 2 pages, and he suits up and leaves the bed of Mary Jane Parker, and dressed up as Spidey, he's out on the city. And then we go to Bruce, who's having a nightmare of when Joe Chill kills his parents. Then he wakes up, and he gets suited up as Batman, and he's out. Now, something that was said in here, and my Spidey knowledge in comics is not as extensive as yours, your dad's, Pete's. In here, it sounds like he says there was a home invasion.
Yeah, there's versions
accurate?
of that.
Okay,
there's versions of that. Yeah,
because I know part of it that I can definitely think is canon is just what I've seen in the movies.
Yeah,
twice in live action, that how Uncle Ben was killed. And so that to me stood out right away. I was like, oh, a home invasion, somebody broke in, huh? I hadn't heard that one yet before. I should mention too that the killer in Peter's nightmare ends up becoming Joker.
Yep. And
so
then vice versa. Yeah,
let's go ahead and do that. Yeah. And then then it seems like there's Carnage as Bruce's, which is interesting to me, because then it is like, and I don't need it explained, but it's like, how do they know each other exists? But I kind of like that they end up in Gotham, I think, right? Both are Spider-Man and Batman. Everybody ends up in Gotham. And I love that just kind of happens. It's not like,
so do I.
Who are you? Wait, who are you? Well, I'm from the Marvel universe. Well, I'm from, you know what I mean? Of like, where's Gotham? It's just like, no, Gotham's on the map. It's close to New York. Everybody's here.
It's a really cool, simple way of getting to the point and just respecting the legendary nature of both these two characters, right? Is let's not create this big thing that's putting them together. Let's just have it be, these are the two heroes that exist in the world, and they just end up with each other. And I actually think that's perfect because, and I also think using Carnage and the Joker as the two villains in here are perfect. That's a perfect pairing, because while I would argue, I think it's correct to say that the Joker is Batman's greatest villain. Carnage is not Spider-Man's greatest villain, but when you think about what the Joker is, like that pure chaos, pure evil, to Carnage is that for Peter. And to put these two absolutely obsessed, bloodthirsty characters together, very sadistic, creepy, and in some ways they're both each other. The Joker loves to create carnage, and Carnage in and of itself at times does feel like the Joker in terms of how unpredictable he can be. So I think having these two be the threat for our main heroes here is a great choice.
I agree. Yeah, they match up pretty well. Man, something that you said. So we both like they're Spider-Man and Batman. All right, we're going after the bad guys. Do you think if that's presented these days in a news story, because I think, a lot of people say that the audiences are smarter now. There's a lot more dissection of everything in media now. Do you think that would fly here in 2022?
I'll be honest, I do, but only with certain characters it would.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think, like, the way I feel reading this, I think most fans of both characters will feel the same way as, it doesn't matter, just put them together. Yeah. Who cares? I know you'll have your subsection who's like, well, wait, how do these universes collide?
Excuse me, how is somebody from New York City in Gotham?
Isn't Batman like, or people would be like, of course he would know there's a multiverse or whatever. Nah, like, they're two of the goats, so just let them be like, hey, All right.
I mean,
Let's do
technically,
it.
I'm reading this in 2022 for the first time, and I went with it. I didn't need
Right?
some
Go
kind
with
of explanation. It's just that's how it is, and I'm totally cool with it. I do stand out shots instantly are of each hero when they go out on the night right here at the beginning of
course.
Spider-Man swinging that suit, those colors, they pop. They look
Like,
great.
oh, it's perfect, man.
And then a couple pages later, the same thing for Batman, that
Mhm.
yellow oval, hashtag Team Yellow Oval.
Hashtag Team Yellow Oval.
That looks great. So I mean, right, it had me right there. And I going into this, I don't know anything about what the story is. I just know Batman and Spider-Man are together. That's how these Marvel, when I start visiting these and tracking down these Marvel DC crossover books, that's how it is. I don't know the setups.
I love it.
So I do. I mean, at this point, it says, like, you know, we're almost like 10 pages in. And so you get the quick Spidey introduction, you get the quick Batman introduction, and then you hop right to Cletus.
Mhm.
Cletus Cassidy, Carnage, which I haven't seen the second Venom movie yet. So I don't know if you think Woody Harrelson does this perfect Cletus Cassidy impression.
I thought he did a good job for what
Right.
the movie set up.
Okay. All right, there you go. But some side characters here that play into it, obviously Cletus Cassidy, Joker, Dr. Kafka, and Cassandra Breyer. So the setup in being there's like under Dr. Kafka, she's trying to, what do you want to say, help cure Cletus and all that. And time and again, it's just the methods aren't working. So bring in this Cassandra Breyer, who has this whole idea of a chip to be inserted in his brain that will cure him. On paper, of course, do the ends justify the means? Yes, but then also in reality, thinking about that, there's something that just both Peter and Dr. Kafka, which I keep wanting to say Kitka, they feel like this isn't okay. What do you think about this as kind of the plot device here?
I think it's a cool plot device because I think we as a society, we live in a society, but
Yeah,
we as a society, I could not say it. We as a society, I do feel like, and this is probably like, I'm like projecting too much, but this is just how I take the story, right?
The floor is yours.
Is I do feel like, and this line is in Venom, Let There Be Carnage, the film, and I agree with it, is I think we're, and not you and me, not, but maybe the world as a whole, I'm saying like the royal, we are obsessed with serial killers, and we are pretty fascinated with them, which is why they're studied and there's millions of documentaries, and we're always trying to figure out why, like what could make them do what they do. And I think we see that in here of these scientists trying to be like, hey, if we can figure out how to cure these crazy people, right? We can figure out how to do that. Well, if we could cure this unbelievably disgusting person, Carnage, this ultimate evil, if we could cure that, we could cure other people who are in, you know, Arkham Asylum and the Raft and all these things. And at the same time, you still have your heroes doubting that, like, I don't know, like, can we afford to just say they're cured and put them back out there? Can we trust them? So I think it plays into the idea how fascinated we are with the minds of serial killers and how we just want to understand them. But sometimes there's nothing to understand, because if we allow them even the 1% chance to coexist, who's to say they will not repeat what they've done?
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I liked it. I thought that it was interesting. And then it started to, not that I was so smart. It just, at this point, we've already seen the Joker. So you just think of like, okay, is Joker's coming? That makes it feel like, okay, I'm feeling the Joker's going to really make sense being included in this story, in which then, you know, they're following similar, okay, in New York, Spider-Man and Carnage takes him down, going to do this experiment. Now we go to Gotham, Batman takes down Joker. Ironic, like reading this now in 2022, Joker is going to spread a virus through bats.
Yeah.
little too close to home these days,
Very close to home.
Interesting way to go. GMD predicted the future. A heads up would have been nice, but whatever. But it takes him to Arkham, in which also shout out JMD on drawing this Arkham Asylum. I just love that look of Arkham.
Yeah.
But you've got Dr. Kafka and Cassandra Breyer there with Jeremiah Arkham, and they're talking about the Joker and talking about, we just did this with Cletus. It just makes me laugh. We did it with Cletus. We did it with Carnage. Let's just say that sounds better. We did this with Carnage and it worked. Let's try it on Joker, because what you're doing right now, like, it's not working. So we need to do, and Jeremiah Arkham's all about it.
Yeah.
And so they conduct the experiments, the trial, whatever you want to call it, on the Joker too, present it in front of the media. And I know I'm just taking us through, so chime in whenever you want, but then on their transportation, Carnage turns back into Carnage, and it's because the symbiote, like, it got up in his brain and it broke up the chip.
It's they were naive to think the chip could inhibit the symbiote. No, that thing has a mind of its own. That is just as much of the Carnage as Cletus is. And no, man, it comes right back out and says, no. No. And now I'm in the car with someone I admire. Right. You find out Carnage, which that's where it really elevates for me, is Carnage, this ultimate evil, has this role model. Like, oh, I've admired you. I've studied you. Like, now we're together and we can wreak this havoc together. And, the Joker, what better than the Joker to have a pal, right? He's always trying to do things on his own. And now he sees like his ultimate ally. So that was cool to see this, even though it's temporary, this camaraderie between these two maniacs, just to be like, oh, I love it. And then I love how he puts his symbiote like through the Joker's nose to help short out that chip too, and to bring that clown prince of crime back. So I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I like when Joker's still quote unquote cured and in that limo that they're transferring him, and he's like, oh no. Like, I just read it very much like, oh jeepers,
Yeah.
And I thought that was funny. But of course, that's them breaking out is where Batman and Spider-Man finally come together, which is great. And I mean, we'll just skip to, like you said, when Joker is back to being the Joker, which anything illustrated, animated, whatever, like going up the nose, and it's going deep. You can feel it.
Oh, my God, it hurts.
I had to watch, like, my Mira got a COVID test in the early times, and it did feel like how deep Carnage is going is how me seeing that happen. I felt like
seeing the COVID test.
Yeah, going Carnage deep there too, but it makes me laugh. It also makes it, I think, is this the one? Yeah, it feels it's telling of its time, and how, like, this is where Joker, he says, Joker compares himself to being like Orson Welles, and Carnage is like David Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
But he's, which that just made me laugh, but I understood what meaning at that point too is, Joker wants the finesse. He loves the game and the elegance with murder, and Carnage is about Carnage, just blunt into it. But Joker doesn't want that. He wants to really kind of milk this, and we know that that's what the Joker's all about. So I think that keeps Joker very true to character. That's how he is, and so then he's so quick to write off the guy who basically just helped set him free. But he's staying true to character on like the chaos and the madness and stuff, and I think that I really like that aspect to it as well. But I mean, back to this, like, Spider-Man and Batman, I mean it takes, it's true to both characters. It's also, if you look at it more, this is the Marvel published crossover book, so Peter is just a little bit more heroic because Batman's the stubborn one, the one that will do it on his own, get out of my city. And then it's Batman coming to terms in his cave, looking up Carnage and, researching Carnage and coming to the realization. So I love it because it works and everything, but it's also like, I see what you're doing, Marvel.
Yeah, I see Marvel. My Spidey takes a little bit of the cake in this one.
Yeah, but okay, I'll allow it because it also includes Alfred, just a brief moment. And
Yes,
then we get a flashback to, or we get a quick shot of the old like 1940s Batmobile.
Yeah,
which is awesome. I love that thing. I think, no, that wasn't the one. It was a similar kind of version used in Three Jokers, I think, that we got a spot. Maybe it didn't have the bat head on the front, but the size, the look of it, the shape was pretty similar. And I think that was being really close to the Killing Jokes Batmobile, and that one too, I thought was like this one. So I just like that little Batmobile. I like a Batcave shot.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
all that stuff
Classic
worked
stuff
for me. So how about you?
Dude, it was great. I do agree with you. You're right, because it does feel both true to character, but a little bit of like the Marvel card being played a little bit first. But I do like a little bit of Batman's reluctance, because he is kind of always like, I could do this on my own. And Peter's, as heroic as he is, he can also be that annoying, quippy guy who's like, you need me, we got to do this. And then it kind of lets Batman come to terms with it. And one of my favorite things in this whole book is when they do come to terms and start working together, just to see. There's been a lot of people who ride shotgun in the Batmobile, but come on, man, just to see Spidey in there just shooting the what with Batman.
Yeah.
And even the fact that he tries to make a joke about he was going to wait for Superman, and then Batman just gives him a look and he's like, it was just a joke, sir. Almost like he finally is like, okay, that was one joke too far. Just classic. So just seeing Spidey in the Batmobile, and if I'm in Batman's mind, something that I put in my headcanon is, in that moment after that joke, they still drive for a bit, and our guy's sitting there and he's thinking about Spidey to his right, and he's going, oh, he kind of reminds me of Dick. He kind of reminds me of the Flash a little bit, right? Like all of these young kids with the costumes and heroism and the quips and that young, eager, cocky desire to be a hero. So I just love that whole scene of them in the Batmobile so much. And if for me reading it now, I go, these are two of my favorite characters. Like, there couldn't be a more small, perfect scene between the two of them. Like, that's why I keep going back to, like, if you love these two characters, like that Batmobile scene, at least to me, is like everything. I'm like, I
think you
it.
bring up a good point that I hadn't really thought of it that much before. It is interior Batmobile scenes are usually brief, but they're always good.
They're always good.
It's character development a lot of times, and relationship building and such. So yeah, I think that's a good point. Something that did bug me throughout this issue was definitely the many times that they used black outlined sound effect letter. They outline, they don't color it in, and it just makes it kind of difficult to see.
Fair point.
But then they did it for, you get your thwips all over, and like the border that's in black, but yet the text itself is white, so you can read that. And then there's a flap, which is in yellow, but it's clear to read. But then they use the black when it's on top of Carnage, who has a lot of black mixed in with this red, so it does it
gets lost. A little bit.
It has that covering. So I'm thinking of the big fight at the end, and Batman's punching Carnage, and you're kind of missing a little bit of the symbiote coming off of his face. Because it's got Tau or toe across it, but it's outlined, and you just kind of miss it. And I'm like, a little bit of that is come on. Minor complaint,
but a very fair one.
But yeah, it's just a little bit more distracting than beneficial. So and you get the classic fight They work together. Spider-Man fights Joker. Batman fights Carnage, which is great because how many times have we seen Spider-Man fight Carnage and Batman fight Joker? And I love inclusion of Carnage and stuff because it's been a while since I've seen the animated series with him, but Venom's the better character.
Yes.
However, he's kind of an anti-hero. Where I loved with Carnage of this guy is full villain.
Full villain.
Given that like a more fierce what do you want? Maybe just that more fierce symbiote than Venom. And Venom kind of holds back a little bit. Eddie Brock holds back with him, whereas Cletus himself is a serial killer. He's got no holds barred weapon on his hands. So I do love that and like you said at the beginning of this conversation, of the matchup of him and Joker just makes a lot of sense too. So
absolutely,
all of that matched up at the end and really getting the JMB really showing his artistic ability, which to me, all like the standout stuff was with Carnage. I just think it's just really drawn and illustrated really well. Oh man, it's beautiful. And it helps to have, a guy who knows that stuff doing it too. But you're right. It's just the way the red is and just the colors in this book too. It just makes all those Spidey and Carnage scenes particularly just pop so much. They really just jump right off the page. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to bring up about this part here? Not particularly, other than it's cool, like you said, to see the switcheroos and have them fight each other's villains. And I do like seeing Spidey realize, he has to hold back when fighting Joker at the end. And Joker is trying to get him, like he always tries to do to Batman, to get him to kill him, and he won't do it. And that's, in a way, I think the writing respecting Batman as well, even though Spidey wouldn't kill him either. I think that's an acknowledgement of where he is and who he's working with, that he understands that he can't cross that line there. Yeah. Good point. And I like too, they both get to stop the villain that they see in their dream that is haunting them with the death of their respective origins, which is cool because at the beginning of the book, as I was understanding it when I'm older, I'm like, oh, it is weird they see the other one, but it's foreshadowing that they're going to take down the other one. And I think it's cool. And I'm not going to lie, I love seeing Spidey punch the Joker across the face. It's really cool. Yeah. Gotta love it. Yeah. Agreed. So let me ask you then, these two questions. Of this, the Spider-Man, Batman Disordered Minds, what was your favorite part? My favorite part has got to be them in the Batmobile. Ooh, I know I talked about it earlier. Sure. It's just that because my favorites, I could argue it's the end here in the very last page, but there's something about seeing Spidey sitting shotgun and just the little him just kind of rattling off and then tells the one joke that gets Batman to react. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." Like it's just still respecting that the presence of the Dark Knight with him. I thought was awesome. Nice. He gets humbled a little bit in that passenger seat. Nice. That's good. But edging it out for me was Carnage busting out in the limo. Yeah. Oh, that's a great part. I like that. I like Joker. I like Carnage. It really gets the rest of the story going too. Yeah. How about favorite panel? Favorite panel for me is that last page. Right after they handshake, it's built well, these two heroes, they don't know what to say. So they just do the simple handshake. And then I just like how it shows them, Spidey jumps off and it just says, you know that they may never see each other again, but the friendship will endure because of the legends of the two. And I really like reading that because even though there's another one that happens, in my mind, if they ever worked together even once, they would
remember each other. And that's a way to acknowledge the weight of these two characters working together and how huge a story like this actually is. That, yes, if they ever met, even if it was only once, there would be a friendship and a level of respect that would last as long as they do.
Very cool. Mine would probably have to be so my tablet, it's around like page 30, I think, but it's right after basically Batman's stubborn and it's kind of get out of my city, and Batman jumps off. He jumps off the roof.
Oh
and
yeah.
Spider-Man's
Oh man.
standing on the
He's
corner
standing
of
up.
the
That's a
roof.
great panel.
I like that a lot. And the moon's behind him. It's just yeah, that's good stuff. I like it a lot. So there you go. Spider-Man and Batman.
Here we go.
We're not done though.
We
Let's
are
go
not.
to the next one.
Heck yeah.
Batman, Spider-Man. This one, published by DC Comics, written by JMD, illustrated by Graham Nolan. So this one does look like Graham Nolan, and for
Yes.
good reason. Released in 1997, physically, like the first book, collected in a DC Marvel crossover, but this one was volume 4. That one too is hard to find. So
Yeah.
I think I know we're both in the same boat of the versions that we read of this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now,
No.
does your copy, does that one have the
Nope.
feeling?
It's flat.
It's flat.
It's
Boo.
just flat. No,
Boo.
no fun pop off, no fun holographic 3D. Nope, just a plain.
We got ripped off.
We did.
We did. Okay. Well, this one I should say is called Batman and Spider-Man: New Age Dawning. Do you remember when you first read this story?
Yeah, so this one was actually relatively more recently. I forgot when, in the last couple years. My dad he had the first one, but he never knew or got the second one. So we were at our local comic shop. Shout out to Graham Cracker Comics in Downers Grove, Illinois, which is the one that we go to. Shout out to Jim and Sam. You guys are legends. I was just there today.
Jim and Sam.
Well, when this goes up, I might have not been there today, but on the day we're recording, I saw you. So if you listen to this, which I'm not sure if they ever do, but if they do, you will.
They
hear
need to listen to this one. You give them a shout out.
I'm going to. They better. Come on, Jim and Sam. But we saw for many years, I saw the Spider-Man and Batman one on the wall, the one that we just talked about. And then there's one point where Batman and Spider-Man was. I'm like, there's a second one. And so we bought it, and then I read it, and then I really loved it. And then here I am. But yeah, no, it was way recently. It was in the recent future. I don't remember when. It was when I've bought a lot of stuff off that special wall in the back. So sometimes the timing blurs and the wall, it cries, but here we are.
Now, can I ask you though?
Yes.
What, you don't have to answer, what this book cost you to buy from in the comic shop?
It wasn't that much. It was, I think I paid $25 for this.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
how I would have paid that. I didn't find anything I looked up and I could have got of these books. It was unreasonable.
Really?
Sorry. It was unreasonable.
That's okay. Dude, I get that more than ever, man. Trust me. I'm like Peter Parker here too, dude, trying to make things work. I can't be dropping that either. Okay, interesting.
That's really respectable. 25. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's still, they're making a good profit on that from
Oh,
this
absolutely.
book. So,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, just like the other one, this too was my first time reading this, and again, I went into it having no clue except Batman and Spider-Man were going to be together. And unlike the first one, though, this one, New Age Dawning, you go to that second page and you see who is faded in the background behind this, and you're like, oh, I guess Roz is in this. So this is an Al Ghul story.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder who from Spideyverse is coming into this one.
Absolutely.
Doesn't take you long to learn. Good old Kingpin.
Absolutely.
And again, that makes total sense to me.
Right. I was just going to say, once again, they picked two characters that just make perfect sense to be together.
Mm-hmm.
They're two men who are obsessed with power, obsessed with control, especially their own narratives, and on two different scales. And they both have this tragic flaw of not wanting to relinquish that power.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what really works in just as how well not only that Carnage and Joker were matched up in the first one, but you think about it and how is that story going to play out? And, you know, that one was pretty, I mean, you were off and running.
Yeah.
You know? And like a lot of Joker stories are, you know, in your face, it's pretty blunt what's going on in the fighting. When Roz is included in stories, he's much more philosophical.
Yep.
You're not going to get complete action-packed fighting or stuff like that. It's more of, you know, idea against idea. And I think that approach, bringing in the Kingpin on this one too, is and I haven't read enough Kingpin stories directly to know if that's usually how his stories work out too. But I know
absolutely.
I think for this, they matched up well in that regard. Of this story, I took my time in reading with this one because this story also took its time to tell.
It did. I would say too, just in my opinion, I do think I love both of these issues significantly. I do think this one has some stronger writing and a little deeper writing, especially because it fleshes out in the first story. Carnage and Joker are brought in to the plot with this whole chip and curing of the madness thing, whereas they're really fleshing out, you know, why Kingpin's doing what he's doing. You know, his wife is dying, and they're fleshing out, you know, Talia, not only her relationship with Batman, but her relationship with Ra's, and setting up what Ra's wants to do. He's sending Talia over. So it really is giving the villains more of a motivation and development, and weaving them all together more than just, hey, let's bring Carnage and the Joker in the same place and antics ensue. It's no, this is all calculated, and you see how Batman and Spiderman both fit into these respective villains' lives as well. So it's like this great gravitational pull of writing just starts bringing all these people together into a pretty interesting, and at times there's a couple nice twists in this one.
Yes.
I do think, as opposed to the last one.
I'm with you. The writing part was something I wanted to say too.
Yeah.
So everything you just said with the writing, you don't need, it's Carnage and Joker, they fit. Hey, you're my hero. You're my idol. I'm a serial killer. You're a crazy clown. What more do we need?
Yeah.
Here, why is Kingpin of New York, why does he need to go fly around the world to meet Ra's? So that requires a little bit more if we want to make sense of this thing.
Absolutely.
So everything you said with that, I totally agree. I like both stories. I think I like this one more.
I do too.
Well said. It's funny because it's less action packed for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just, I do think there's stronger writing and getting you in, and the motivations for Kingpin of really taking it in with the cancer of his lady. Why am I forgetting her name?
Vanessa.
Yeah.
Vanessa. On the Kingpin. On the show, Vanessa.
The inclusion of her and the cancer and like what she says, and I don't know, it makes sense, you know, the motivations make sense. And it doesn't mean with a lot of stuff, doesn't mean that you have to agree with what they're doing, but you do with some. Joker, I don't need to understand. It's better. The Joker just is. Other villains, that explanation, that understanding does help their story. So here, though I don't agree with either Ra's or the Kingpin, it's like I understand why each are doing what they're doing, and Talia for that matter too, like you already said, Talia being included here.
Yeah. So
I refresh, how do Batman and Spider-Man come together in this one?
So in this one, they just what I like about this one is they meet a lot sooner, in the middle of, you know, fighting some thugs. And it's funny because, right after, it's like they know something's going on, and Spidey shows up, and our guy goes, I wondered when you would show up, or I thought you were going to show up, or whatever. So it's like they allude to the fact that they've worked together once already, and let's just get right into it. And once again, there's just some funny banter already where Spidey's trying to make jokes and Batman's going, what we do isn't amusing. And Spidey goes, well, you're dressed up as a bat and I'm dressed up as a spider. So
I loved that. I screenshot that and saved it. I thought that was good.
It's like, yeah, well, we're both in these costumes, so I don't know, man.
Yeah. I like that. And yeah, like you said, I really enjoy that too, because Batman's spying, he's eavesdropping on Talia. Already tried to bait him. He wasn't having it, so she got out of there. Next that we know is she's with Fisk, doing a proposal into which he's not impressed and he wants her out. And then you can see she says, our aim is not chaos, but reclamation, redemption, resurrection. Resurrection gets him because we can see that Vanessa is terminal. Her cancer is terminal. And so if there's any humanistic thing we see about Kingpin and can feel empathy towards, it's that the love of his life is dying from cancer.
Absolutely.
And we do see, she says resurrection, and then Bruce, and we see that he hears, there you go, resurrection, and just puts the binoculars down and says, I wonder when you show up. I do. I agree. Like, I think that's pretty cool too. Classic Batman. He's ahead of you. He doesn't have to look or anything. He knows you're there. Like,
yep.
Yeah. That's Batman.
That's
DC publishing this book. So
right. DC publishing this one. He gets the edge. His name's first.
He gets the badass credit on this one.
Absolutely. Everyone gets one. So Spidey got his nudge, and now Batman gets his nudge in this one.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think here as I scroll through. I mean, you get your handshake early on in this one,
which I love.
Yes.
I love, which you used as the teaser for the show tonight, which I love. That couldn't be more perfect. Couldn't be more perfect.
But the thing is, I was wondering, I'm like, oh no, do I do this to say that we're recording, or do I use this as the image when the episode drops? And then I saw other stuff. I'm like, now we're good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, we're way good. Yeah. There's going to be plenty of other goodies, especially from this one alone, that we can use.
I love the relentlessness that we see as Fisk is trying to contemplate going through with this and agreeing and whatnot. And you have a doctor that's looking at Vanessa and says that, the chemo will keep her alive for a while, but we're fighting the inevitable. Your wife is going to die. And then Fisk is just like, no, he's like, you're fired. We see me strangling him, and then we hear the snap. Just snaps his neck
straight up.
Poor doctor.
He's a big man who uses his force only when he needs to, but when he does, it is very deadly.
Then we get, I think, a really cool full page that's split down the center of half Batman, half Talia, in which I think that the pencils on this just look fantastic. When you use somebody's face, an up close shot of someone's face as a full page, like, you're expecting a lot here. And yeah, I think all of it looks just great. And I like, for no reason other than just I'm a nerd, the wallpaper behind them is
the ovals
the
and
yellow oval,
like demonized,
yellow oval, team yellow oval, Peter Vera, and then then the demon behind Talia. I mean, that's just an awesome looking page. I just like it. I like it a lot.
And not only does it look great, the content's great too, because this is a perfect example of like just the differing philosophy. So literally Batman and Talia are describing the same thing, but the two ways, where Talia, it's this great purpose, this grand plan, and for Batman, it's the most insane thing in the world. And they're both selling who they're talking to about why this needs to happen. In Batman's case, we need to stop it. In Talia's case, you need us and we need you, right? And so as cool as it looks, the content, fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm not, admittedly so, Ra's stories, which nobody's picked Ra's stories on the Batman Book Club,
which surprises me, because he has some good ones, and he's one of like the top Batman, at least in my opinion. He's one of the top Batman villains, so I feel like people would be chomping at the bits to talk about him.
But they're not usually like my first go-to stories, because a lot of times this depends on the mood. Most of those times I'm grabbing the Long Halloween, but if I'm not grabbing the Long Halloween, it's grabbing some others. I'm not give me Ra's stories every time, but when I'm in the mood for those, it's like, these are the ones that I love. Is you have Batman you have Roz explaining his side, and it does make sense.
It does.
It's not a cynical view. It's the world's kind of screwed. Look at history. We are repeating ourselves and then giving examples. And it's like, you make a strong case, but then it's like, he gets to that last point and he's like, so I think we need genocide. Like, I don't think that's the right way to cure this.
Hey, brother, no. It's once again, it's the correct or a valid, and that's what makes the strongest villains, right? Is really compelling and actually fair intention, but the actions don't the ends don't justify the means, right? So you're right, he sets it up really well, and then there's that ending and you're like, no sir, they're gonna stop you.
And then always in the middle of those, and I think it's strongest too when there is the inclusion of Talia, because she says, because this is like way towards the end where, you know, again, Talia, it's almost like choose beloved or her father. And she says, there's one thing there's one thing you've never understood about me, Batman. I do not need rescuing. I am here at my father's side for the same reason that I love you, not because I am compelled to, but because I choose to. She's torn similarly to how Batman is usually torn too. She chooses her father all the time. I think because her ideology, for her, she feels like she's sacrificing love for a bigger thing.
Yes,
it's just too bad
it's that blind, it's that like blind glorious purpose.
Yeah, so she feels like she's the hero of her story. I feel
absolutely
she's making
her
the great
mind.
Sacrifice. When yes, getting deep into it and whatnot, you know, it's like it's a tragedy in a sense too, though, because
right?
Bruce, you feel if he could get her on his side. Sorry, Selena, but it's Bruce and Talia getting married.
Yeah.
You know, they're happily ever after, but it's because she can't cut that cord, you know, from her dad, and she always ends up choosing her dad. So,
and what's really strong in this writing is, like I said, there's like a perfect comparison of each character. So you have Spider-Man, you have Batman, you have Roz, you have Kingpin, then you have Talia, and then you have Vanessa, who also confides in Talia a similar conflict where she knows exactly what Wilson Fisk is, but also sees this loving, compassionate side and understands that maybe she shouldn't be in the situation, but she is. So she's off put by his terrible side, but drawn back in by the good side. So you have them relating to each other and figuring out where they are in their own story. And then you have Roz and Kingpin who are also these complements of wanting this power and needing each other. So it's very compelling. There's so many layers to this little motley crew of people going on here.
Now, because again, it's kind of fuzzy for me here a little bit. Well, first of all, I love how Batman and Spider-Man sneak onto the plane and go halfway across the world.
Oh, love it. Just Roz. Love it. Like in the cheesy disguises where they're like ripping off it's fine. Like
I'll go for it. I'll go with it. It's fine.
It goes back to that age-old thing. Like, how do Batman's ears fit in there? Like, I love it. I don't care. That happens in so many things. And I'm like, I don't care. Just roll with it. I love it.
Then they're climbing up a mountain and Spider-Man gives Batman a piggyback ride, which is funny.
Which is
the avalanche knocks him down, and then Batman ends up carrying Spider-Man and saving him. I mean, the equivalent of a Batmobile scene in a way of it's smaller, one looking after the other, which I think is cool and is fun. Now, Roz gets Kingpin over. I forget now that the direct connection. So go ahead and explain what's the plan here.
So he tricks, or so you think. Well, because there's a lot of twists. His bait for Kingpin is, you know, I'm going to cure your wife in exchange for you to give up your city, which we're going to explode, right? So and then antics ensue, of course, and you know, is Roz telling the truth? Is he not? Is his wife going to get cured? Is she not? And it's that whole idea of like, even going back to the first story when, Joker tells Carnage that he doesn't really need him. You can never, why do villains never end up working together? Because they're too selfish in their own way.
There you go. But then it takes a twist on a twist on a twist, and everybody's betraying everybody, in which there is no cure for Vanessa.
Correct.
But then I forget what's the. I knew I should have written all these down because it is like it's multiple twists. I thought that's the last one.
All the twisties. Yep, yeah. All the twisties are happening, but the biggest one is that there is truly no trust. And when Kingpin found out that the cure is possibly not a thing, he called his pal Spidey.
Yes.
And helped. And it turns out him and Batman were invited by Kingpin himself. And Kingpin gives the classic line, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
And that once again shows Kingpin. Kingpin to me is a pretty big equivalent to the Penguin for Batman. Whereas these crime bosses, where they're these crime bosses who the heroes always tend to, they can work with them and get information, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a fight. You know what I mean? Like, how many times has he gone to the Iceberg Lounge and asked Cobblepot for something, and they've talked to each other and they've used each other in ways. So it's very similar between Spider-Man and Kingpin. They're so intertwined, and they do have this give and take. So I thought it is brilliant that Kingpin goes, you know what, this villain's going to screw me over. I might as well let Spider-Man know and let bygones be bygones. And the beauty of Kingpin is he always gets himself out of conflict with the FBI and the cops. So it's funny because Kingpin actually walks out of this story pretty unscathed with no consequences in a way. And Roz, is kind of the loser when it comes to his grand plan. So I love that. Do you feel that same way about the Penguin and Batman too, or am I being like too crazy?
I don't think you're being too crazy. I just didn't make the connection, I guess. This is
which is okay. I also find connections in things that don't have connections, though.
Yeah,
that's the kind of fan I sometimes ask Pete about it.
But now I'll when I read this again, it'll be all Penguin. Next Spider-Man thing I read that's got Kingpin, I'm like, where's the Penguin connection?
Where's the Penguin? Where's Comic? Where's the Iceberg Lounge?
Yeah, give me the Iceberg Lounge.
This is a boring office in some penthouse.
I think I do like that Roz is amused, and he's like, well played, and such calculation, such genius must be rewarded. You are free to go, all of you. I will even provide you with safe transport. In which Spider-Man questions that, and Batman says, if we try to take Roz now on his home ground, none of us will get out alive. I love that. Like, that seems so in character for these two in their history and all. And then it's dropped too that Roz says, oh dear, did I forget to tell you, there is no cure. Yeah. In which it does like, oh man, is that how this ends? And then we get the Talia part that I told you where she chooses her dad. But then the great payoff of it is that we see that Batman goes to the cave. He creates a cure, gives it to Spider-Man, who then takes it to Fisk. And then the last shot is of the two of them swinging together toward us, and that's like
right. It's picture perfect.
Bravo!
And because you're right, our guy Bats always gets that cure.
He does.
Always gets that cure, and you're right. Here's where the DC publication it's Batman who gets to save a life and have a really and which creates actually a more of a nice emotional payoff in this one, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love that part. Is there anything of this one that you'd like to add on before we head to the end here?
Other than, man, both these books, they end so strong.
Yeah.
With those last shots, especially, you're like, oh, and there they are again, swinging towards us. And even the writing, right? Like, angels are all around us if we would only open our eyes and just look up and they're in the sky. It's like, so in the first one, they're described as legends, right? Two legends, these figures. And in this book, they're described as angels, as these guardian angels who are saving lives, which I think is the best two ways to describe Spider-Man and Batman, in my humble opinion.
Well done, Nikko Caruso.
Thank you, brother. I tried.
Fabulous.
I wrote all this down.
You did? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well done. I did, but then I left some parts out, and like the plot. Jeez. But
well, it's all good.
Yeah. So how about let's get into some favorites here. So what was your favorite part of Batman Spider-Man?
My favorite part of this one would have to be probably when Spidey drops down and Batman knows he's there and they just start talking again and they agree to work together. The handshake, like that whole rooftop scene, because it works so well coming off the first one, because you're right, now they know each other, they've worked together, they know they got to work together again, it's funny, and then they just go do it, which is just it's once again, it's getting down to business. It's not wasting time with these two characters. We know who they are, let's get down to business. I love it. How about you?
All right, mine's got to be the last page with the cure.
Yeah,
I think that really, like, that hits ends it on the best note.
Yeah.
And it's another example of why I think that this second one is written, what do you want to say, more powerfully, makes a bigger impact.
Yep.
Than the first one. The first one, I'm not going to say negative things about that one's writing. I just think like this one was almost written stronger. Like we've already started.
It was 100%. I couldn't agree more.
That final note was a really big part of that too. How about a favorite panel of this one? What you got?
My favorite panel, I can't deny, man, is when he's carrying Batman on his back and Batman goes, is this necessary? It's just so, you got the Batmobile scene and then you got, Batman in that moment can't grapple, so he's got to get piggybacked by Spidey. It was just, and the fact that they're both wearing like those like coats, like those Parker coats in the snow, like it's just like when I was finished, I went back to that panel right before we hopped on because I reread it a little bit prior to this, and I just had to look at that again. I'm like, I cannot believe there is a something that is real and it exists. There's a scene in the Batmobile with Spidey that exists, and then there's a scene where Batman's holding on the back of him, like a little kid getting piggybacked up a snowy mountain. I'm like, it's just comic book fun.
Good.
You know what I mean? How about you?
Absolutely. Page 9. No surprise here. Batman's.
Oh yeah, that's a great illustration of just like the size of the wings too. Just
swinging down underneath the cape in shadow. His face is in shadow, but it's all Batman. Give me those shots.
I just love when he's drawn with such a large cape. When it's almost like a character following him. It's just this aggressively large ensemble of a cape. Perfect.
It's great. Would you like to see, and you can answer this any way that you want to, would you like to see this book or either book or both books adapted in animation?
Oh my gosh, I hope they do. Yeah, I would prefer the second one if they were only going to pick one. I would love a two-parter where they release one and the other. But yeah, absolutely. Because and then I would have a field day with like, okay, who would they get to be the voices and everything? And my dream would be you get, no, because the 90s actor unfortunately passed away. I believe, I'm not sure, but I don't know. I would love it to be Hamill as the Joker and then Conroy's Batman and the animated series, people all coming back, but I would love both these. But if you were only going to pick one, I would actually prefer the second one just because the writing's stronger.
Yes, I would love to see these. I have no faith that we ever would get adapted animation, sadly.
Frustrating part, yeah.
But that wasn't the question, was it, Ryan? Yes, I would love it. And I would love them to do both. Ideally, I would like both in the, like the 75-minute movie, maybe 80,
Mhm.
and you use the full plot of the Batman Spider-Man crossover. That's the main one. And I think you could work in Spider-Man and Batman. Like
Yeah.
the Joker Carnage part, you could work in within this story
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
And that's how you could get both.
Point. Yeah.
So that you could get it all in one
Mhm.
movie. And I would love, absolutely. I would love that. And as far as casting, I mean, these read 90s and feel 90s. So I would want the 2 90s animated series voice casts on these. So what I'm saying now is impossible. So in my head, I would love to see that as the version. So very cool. There you go. And Nikko, do you have any kind of final thoughts on this Batman Spider-Man crossover?
I just think
crossovers at all.
Just to tie them both together is it's great that, in my opinion, these don't suck. Right? It's great that they don't suck. That if you are fans of
if they reprint this, please, DC Marvel, if you hear this, if they reprint this, use that quote. Thank
God these don't suck, right? Just because, like, for a lot of people, and I almost think objectively in their respective universes in Marvel and DC, these are the 2 icons, right? You can argue Superman right next to Batman, but these are the 2 biggest icons, in my opinion, of Marvel and DC. So it's amazing that both times they've crossed over, the stories are really good and really fun, and they're really true to character. So I'm just thankful for these, and I'm thankful I like them both. I'm thankful you let me talk about them, and I'm actually really glad you like them as well.
Yeah,
because I think they're freaking cool.
I think that they're very good. I'm really glad that I like both of them. Obviously, the Punisher Batman ones that I did last year, I liked one a lot, the other one not so much, and I'm really excited that there's more of these that I have not discovered. But as far as these 2 specifically, I think that they're a lot of fun, and they're ones that I will continue to have on the radar to hunt down physical copies.
Yes,
because I would love DC Marvel to somehow figure out how they can print some of this stuff, because they'll sell. They'd sell. I have no doubt in my mind that they would sell.
And Mr. Lauer, I think it's time for a third here in 2022. I think you can throw one more. Who would you? Let's play a fun game. What villains would you like to see teamed up? This time around.
I'm a sucker for Green Goblin. Get Green Goblin in there.
Yeah,
I can never have too much Green Goblin.
Yeah.
And then who would? Big businessman that's hiding a secret. I don't know one that would team up and make a lot of sense in that regard. So maybe Man-Bat, because he flies too. I
love it. For me, I'm glad you brought up Green Goblin, because I would like to see Batman going up against Green Goblin and make a story where, like, Norman Osborn and Bruce Wayne are, like, connected somehow. And I think it would also be cool. I feel like it would be hard to also for which villain would go perfectly with Green Goblin, but for some reason I keep going to like a Hugo Strange with like the Goblin serum, and maybe Norman gives Hugo the Green Goblin serum and he's doing something in Gotham or whatever, and that could be fun. But I think to really elevate it, you would maybe, and this might blow out the story too much, but I think maybe it would be safe to bring in like Oracle talking to them. Maybe there's like a Dick Grayson cameo. Maybe there's like a Miles Morales cameo, like showing how they've left these legacies and other characters, or you could just keep it as Batman and Spider-Man. But I think it would be cool to get some more of this, or like Catwoman and Black Cat to meet. I think would be cool.
Yeah.
I think you could have some fun if you did one today with the way, like I said, that like the legacies of these characters have expanded to all these other areas. So
I hope DC Marvel's listening. They can do a handshake,
which
like
of course they are, right? Of course they are, and we are now on the payroll for coming up with this idea.
You know what? Like, you can have it.
Just give it. I'll pay you when it comes out. Like,
I'll buy it.
Yeah,
I'll buy it. So there you go. If you can track down Spider-Man, Batman crossovers, This is a Batman podcast. Batman Spider-Man crossover.
And then Spider-Man
There we go.
crossovers first.
Do it. Highly recommended from both of us. Do not break your bank. Do not lose your savings trying to find one. Only half kidding there. So lastly, Nico, before I let you go, we got a poll question we got to figure out here. The most recent poll question I asked following the last Batman Last Night on Earth story that we talked about in the last episode, I said, which post New 52 title written by Scott Snyder and featuring Batman is your favorite? And 40% of the people that voted chose All-Star Batman. Nico, did you vote in that poll?
I did not.
You did not. Okay.
Unfortunately.
The options were All-Star Batman, Last Night on Earth, Metal, and Death Metal. What would you have voted?
Oh, I would have voted for All-Star Batman.
All-Star Batman. That's got some good arcs.
There's great arcs. Metal, I'm going to admit, I think I'm pretty, not to say like there's levels of intelligence, whatever. I think I'm a pretty good reader. Metal and Death Metal hurt my brain so bad. I could not follow it half the time, and there's so much going on. No disrespect. Sure. And then a lot of people don't like Last Night on Earth. I had fun with like some of it, but it would be All-Star Batman. I'm not surprised that All-Star Batman got 40%.
Yeah.
With those four options.
I didn't know, to be honest. I thought it'd maybe come between All-Star Batman, or actually, I didn't even know. I thought maybe Last Night on Earth and Metal. All-Star Batman at 40%, and Metal was at second place with 28%.
Because Metal was popular. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it was popular. Yeah. I just had a hard time reading it. And then Death Metal, same thing.
No pressure here, but you're going to help me out with this poll question because I can't choose. And I don't know if one will be too easy or the other one will be too complicated. So here's the two that I came up with. Between Batman and Spider-Man, who has the better rogues gallery? Now, there could be, because it's the Batman podcast, this could be a very easy question. And I love polls where it's pretty even. Yeah. So I have another one that says, between Batman and Spider-Man, which hero is more popular in comics? Because it is undisputed, I think the two most popular superheroes right now are Batman and Spider-Man. So that would be, first of all, big screen, live action, etc. So I was trying to think of what about in comics, but go ahead.
Those are two really good questions. I do think I think Batman would win the Rogues one. Because as someone who even loves Spider-Man, I do give Batman the slight edge over the Rogues Gallery. And this is a Batman podcast. I really would be, I'm more interested in the second one.
Okay. Cool.
Because they both sell like crazy. And to the point where like they both fly off shelves. And I think that the success of both of their films in the early to mid 2000s, and then with Spider-Man being big right now and Batman never not being big, and seeing that Reeves movie come out, which is going to bring in new comic book fans anyway, I would be very curious because I don't even know what I would answer right now. So that's why that's a good one.
Nice. That's going to be the poll question. Then.
I love it.
It's I'm so biased that I will answer Batman. I will also, before I vote, really honestly think about it.
Yeah. Oh, same
My
here.
vote is going to be Batman.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But whether I'm going to really think about it though, because I think you definitely could see both sides of that. So there you go. If the poll question, you heard it right here. Which hero, Batman and Spider-Man, which hero is more popular in comics? So go to the Batman Book Club Twitter at the Batman BC and answer that poll question. I'd love to get as many votes as possible. And if it is not up when you listen to this episode, hang in there because it will be coming shortly. So Nikko Caruso, thank you for coming back to the Batman Book Club.
Thank you so much for having me, bro. This was the highlight of the week.
Oh, stop it.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
Shitter.
because never should we did not talk face to face for a while, and we got to do it twice in the last month with Scream and this. So it was a joy. It was an absolute joy. We normally see eye to eye, which is cool. So if you're the resident Batman here, I'm the resident Spidey here.
There you go.
Flip made in heaven, brother. Flip.
Excellent. Why don't you go ahead and plug away anything and everything you'd like to?
Yes, please. I'll try not to spend too much time here. You can first and foremost, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and TikTok at Nikko Caruso. That's NIKKO CARUSO. I tweet a lot. If you ever want to talk about anything, comic book, entertainment, film, you can do that. I also do film reviews on TikTok. So if you want quick, easily digestible thoughts on movies, please follow me on TikTok, and you can learn about how I suddenly became a Kristen Stewart super fan. You guys probably don't care about that. Also, please, how Ryan and I met, please follow the Vigilante 1939 podcast. That's at Vigilante 1939 on Twitter, in which I'm very honored to have a podcast with my father, the one who got me into this fandom, my superhero, and one of my good friends, Zeddy, from down the block here. It's just a dad, me, and a really good friend of mine, just talking stuff, everything that you're watching and reading. We don't talk about comics often, so I like to hop on a show like this. And then follow the Italian Spider-Man Coalition with me and Mr. Peter Vera, who you hear on this show once a month. So if you're looking to extend into Spidey stuff, we talk about Spidey comics on there, which is awesome.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right, there you go. As I just said with the Batman poll, you can follow the Batman Book Club on Twitter at the Batman BC for upcoming episodes, latest episode drops, sometimes even some giveaways. There's going to be another March Madness with the Batman Book Club. A lot of people participated last year. That one's going to be coming. So you'll definitely want to follow the Twitter feed for that. You can also email with questions or comments if you'd like at thebatmanbc@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there's a number of ways you can do that. Like I said at the top, you can go to patreon.com/thebatmanbc. You can also support the show with merchandise from TeePublic. Just go to TeePublic, type in TBDC as in the Batman Book Club, and you'll see the options for t-shirts, hoodies, notebooks, onesies, whatever you'd like. But if you want to support the show and you don't want to spend any money at all, that's 100% A-okay. The best thing that you can do is leave a rate and review on the Apple Podcast page. The link to that page is in the description of this episode. The more reviews it gets, the more it helps spread the word. And as we all know, the word is panic. So, for Kristen Stewart Stan, I am Ryan Lauer. And until next time, read more Batman comics.